Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate the WDR team for producing a very timely and interesting report. Employment issues are very complex and diverse, so I think it's a real achievement to produce a report that is relevant for such a wide range of countries, from Rwanda to Slovenia and Poland. And in particular, I like the typology very much because it helps us think through the different challenges and opportunities in different contexts. I'm going to structure my comments around three main areas: inclusive growth, first one, macroeconomic policy, and the post-2015. I think the greatest contribution of this report is really the message that jobs should move center stage, and that in economic policy, and that social externalities really ought to be taken into consideration in that decision-making process. I also agree that labor market policies, as stated before, have limited scope in developing countries for a number of reasons, coverage and implementation issues, and therefore we need to focus on a much wider range of economic policies, broader range of policies. So I think these are very, very important and strong messages. I'm not necessarily sure there is a trade-off between growth strategies and job strategies. I think there are good growth strategies and bad growth strategies. I would define a growth strategy by one that promotes economic participation through work and also enables a equitable sharing of the benefits from that growth in society, with a focus on youth, women, and the poor. So this greater focus on inclusiveness really ought to be the new benchmark of economic policy, especially bearing in mind the growing inequalities within most countries. So as the report suggests, a key challenge for policy is really to identify the types of jobs that deliver on development, provide the greatest development payoffs, and the challenge to identify and tackle the constraints for that job creation. So very much welcome this. My second point, one area that I think it would deserve a bit more attention is the role of macroeconomic policy and the generation of productive employment. The report does mention macroeconomic stability, but I think it would be important to define that macroeconomic stability. Personally, I would define it as price stability, inflation, exchange rate, but also considerations about the real economy, output, and employment. A recent review of macroeconomic frameworks in 50 developing countries highlighted that still there is a very strong emphasis on fiscal adjustment and inflation targeting, and very few mentions of employment. So clearly, employment does not seem to be a central objective of macroeconomic policy. So my worry is that there might be an inconsistency between the very ambitious job strategy or inclusive growth strategies we are trying to promote here, and then a macroeconomic framework that doesn't really take into consideration those outcomes. The report implicitly talks about fiscal policy, but agricultural research, extension services, infrastructure, human capital does cost. These investments are costly and they have fiscal implications. So it would be interesting also to think about mobilizing sufficient domestic resources and thinking about coordination of fiscal, monetary, and exchange rate policies. So I think what would be important is to bring jobs also center stage of macroeconomic policy. Just a small point also on the emphasis on structural policies to promote structural transformation. I think it's very important to focus on these processes, the idea to move jobs from low productivity activities, say from subsistence agriculture, to higher productivity activities, commercial agriculture, manufacturing, and modern services. And in fact, these processes have been the cornerstone of economic and social development in many advanced and, to a certain extent, emerging market economies today. So this didn't happen automatically, though. It required an identification of emerging opportunities and quite strong and bold policies. So I think it would be important to mention that. I think the report also provides some suggestions on these, actually, the focus on targeting in agriculture, etc. Finally, post-2015, the current framework mentions the targets and 4 indicators on unemployment. It only made into the framework in 2008, a good 7 years after the original framework was created. I think there is emerging evidence that employment is coming up in the agendas. We mentioned the global crisis, the Arab Spring, and I think a number of surveys have also ranked growth and jobs as a high priority, top priority for people. So looking forward, if we're going to have a new set of goals and targets, I do think employment will figure prominently. The question is, what can the international community do to help developing countries achieve those targets? And I think here we really need to consider a wider range of policies, not just about aid, it's about trade, investment, and migration, and how these policies can be coordinated. And you pointed out that one area of research that requires more attention is precisely these dynamics and the implications possibly also on the composition and the level of employment. So to conclude, congratulations again for the WDR team. Very interesting, and I hope this is the start of a very interesting conversation on employment issues. Thank you.